right, so this is Zotter Sornyard Family History. And the goal in meeting today was to talk about some of our past, our collective past, so that we have some of that written down. And we have some of the information about the Sornyards and the Zotters collectively written down isn't the word I want to find, but we've gotten some family history there. But a lot of family history is talking about independent things like what were the pets that you have, and where did you go on vacation, and things that might not be written down.
Well, that can be short.
Yeah, that's gonna be a real short video.
But I wanted to focus on that, and I also wanted to focus it because Alvin Zotter, my grandfather, your father, there's not as much family history there, so we can really trace back our Sornyard and French genes fairly far back. But I have some naturalization papers in from Austria-Hungary, and it's actually not Austria-Hungary, it's Hungary, but we were always told that the Zotters were Hungarian. I don't even have really a clear sense.
German.
Austrian.
But that was all at one point kind of all mashed together. And so it's my understanding that they are Austrian. You can find Zotter information in Austria. But the only thing that I have from that's Hungarian is the naturalization papers. So there's very, very little that we know about them.
Well,
Or more accurately, that I know about them, and I'd like to know more. Like I know my great-grandpa, Grandpa Zotter's dad, died young, Carl Zotter, and he was very Catholic, and he went to that like Sacred Heart on
Retreats. He went to retreats.
on Woodward. Super Catholic family.
Don't know if it was Woodward, but you know.
What was that? Duns Scotus?
No, I don't think so. Maybe.
But and there's a picture of him with the other men in the retreat,
Yes.
and that's about it. Like, did he come over? Did he come over from Austria or Germany? He did. How old was he?
I was told he did, is what I remember. He was from Graz, Austria.
And how old was he?
I have
when
no
he came?
idea. His wife, I believe, was born in the U.S., Grandma Zotter.
So was that Clara Stangline?
Yes, and she was what they call Lower German. She was from Germany, not Austria. Back then they were separate, well they are today again too, separate countries. So you got to remember a lot of borders were drawn after World War I that weren't there before.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you know, you're not American anymore, you're Chinese or Canadian or whatever. So
And wasn't our name at one time Czotter?
I thought you said somebody search that and seen they could see,
Yeah.
which would make it more Czech than Austria, but who knows? Because we don't know anything about Carl other than, you know, he was a woodworker, skilled craftsman, and bang.
All right.
And common enough back then, woodworkers tend to get a lot of colon and rectal cancer, something in the sawdust, they believe. Even when I worked in a pattern shop, the woodworkers had to go for periodic tests. So,
I didn't know that.
and apparently they treated him with radium up the anus, which just destroyed everything, including maybe the cancer, but everything around it. So he
And at
probably
that
died a
same-
painful death. Yeah.
And at that same time, our maternal grandfather developed colon cancer. His was diagnosed and treated, and he lived for, what, 20 years after that?
Was that
59,
Pepper.
59 or 60 he died. Yeah.
He died April 7th,
And
1960.
Carl Zotter died in 29, I believe. So
Wow.
30 years later.
They were both diagnosed at the same time, virtually. One correctly, one incorrectly.
Dad was just out of high school, and he lost his father.
They treated Grandpa Zotter for a stomach ulcer.
Do me a favor and throughout this be as specific as who, because like my Grandpa Zotter isn't your Grandpa Zotter, and so be as specific as you can with
Okay.
names. So they treated who?
They treated John Sornyard, my grandfather, for an ulcer.
And that was Pepper,
That was Pepper.
but Pepper lived.
Until
He-
59
Because they treated him correctly.
or 69.
But it wasn't an ulcer; it was cancer. You said.
No, that was for exactly the opposite. For Grandpa Zotter, Clara's husband.
Carl Zotter. with a
Carl.
K.
Carl Zotter.
What was Carl's middle name? Do we know, or did he maybe not have one?
His name had a K?
Yes, it was K. Carl Zotter.
Didn't know that either.
K. Carl Zotter.
That's my understanding, my belief. Yeah.
Okay, so
Again,
K. Carl Zotter
Was treated for an ulcer.
Was treated for an ulcer. Okay. Alright. Alright. So that gives us a little bit of history or background and the ability to kind of dig in a little bit more. And then the rest is kind of starting from the top and doing it a little bit more linearly. So, Mary Ann, what is your full name?
Mary Ann Zotter. My confirmation name is Teresa, so my full name would be Mary Ann Teresa Zotter, after Teresa the Little Flower.
Did you have a nickname?
Many, but none stuck. Maz, as I grew to an adult, which were my initials, is the one that has stuck the most.
And why did your parents select Mary Ann for you?
Because they had had two boys very close apart. Mom said it was like raising twins. And 3 years later, they made a novena that if Mom was able to get pregnant again, that and if she had a girl, they would name me after the Blessed Mother and her mother, Saint Anne de Beaupré. And they promised that they would always refer to me as Mary Ann, never just Mary.
But there was never any history of infertility. There was no reason to think that she wouldn't get pregnant.
They practiced, what was it called, the rhythm method.
Yeah, back in the day, like not even like natural.
So right, so it was like a crapshoot one way or the other. But that's how the story came down to me.
Okay, and John, what is your full name?
John Anthony Zotter.
And why did your parents select this name for you?
I have no idea.
No, John was after Mom's dad, Pepper,
Oh, it was?
and the Anthony was after Dad's middle name, Alvin Anthony.
All right, and my
Good
confirmation
Lord.
name was Charles after Uncle Charlie.
Oh, I never knew that.
Who's Uncle Charles?
He was Clara
And Hilda.
Stengline's brother-in-law.
And Hilda's husband.
Clara Stengline and Hilda were sisters. Clara married
Yeah.
a Zotter, and Hilda married a Stengline.
Correct.
Or no, married a Rumenap. They were both
Yeah,
Stenglines.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Single, right.
And John, did you have any nicknames? Do you have a nickname?
No, not really.
All right.
We didn't do
And
that much. We didn't have nicknames back then.
No, we really didn't.
and in keeping with the fullness of family history, what was Carl's full name, and why did they name him that?
Carl John Zotter.
So John Anthony and Carl John.
Yes.
And
We-
why did they name him Carl John?
I have no idea.
Maybe after Pepper. I don't know.
Well, you were named
John
after
John-
Pepper.
Yeah, I know. So who knows? A lot of custom is to name a middle name after a parent, a grandparent, or something. But
At
And
that time.
Carl was probably after his grandfather.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
for sure. But
Which
he
not
was
the
Carl
name.
Carl
Carl
with a C.
Zotter.
Mhm.
Okay. When and where were you born, Marianne?
I was born at Providence Hospital on West Grand Boulevard in Detroit on June 3rd, 1945.
And when and where were you born, John Anthony?
I was born on February 16th at home on Brooklyn.
In Detroit.
And I believe Mommy, who was Mom's what, aunt?
Yep,
Yeah.
She was a midwife, if I remember what Mom told me.
correct.
And at my birth, she told Mom that I was the most beautiful baby she'd ever seen.
Oh, come on.
Yes, she did. I got told that.
Well, John,
I
that
love
doesn't make it the
that.
truth.
But I noticed after my birth at home, they went to a hospital for Mary Ann. So. And
That was
Carl was
just
born
cool.
in a hospital also.
Oh, Carl was born in
Yeah,
hospital.
for some reason they decided to mix it up for me.
You
John,
never know.
John
No.
never went into a hospital until he was how old, when he was running around the pool and fell and got stitches?
Oh, yeah. But that wasn't an overnight stay. That was the emergency room.
That was the
So,
closest you
like,
had been to a hospital.
Yeah.
And when was Carl born?
November 5th, 1940.
And are there any nicknames for him?
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of either. He must have taken a confirmation name, just never knew it.
And how did your family come to live in Brooklyn? Or in this case, I think the bigger question is, how did Grandma move from Lima, Ohio to Detroit? Because Mary Lena, your mother, grew up in Lima, Ohio, where Grandpa's daughter, Alvin Anthony, lived in Detroit.
Because Pepper came to Detroit he was a painter with a house painter, but he used oils, not latex. And he moved here for a job.
So were there better jobs here? Was there?
Apparently that he moved here, yeah.
Detroit was exploding after Henry Ford started production in the 20s. You could come, a lot of Southerners moved up north for the
The Great Migration.
$5 a day, where some people were making $5 a week. But boy, you earned that money. You earned every penny of it.
Okay, so he came up during that time.
Mhm.
And then, were there other family members in the area when he moved up?
Not that I know of.
Remember?
Do you know of any?
I
He
don't
just
know
was
how the
like
stem
short.
lines were involved. The house in Brooklyn was two-story, that I remember.
I have no recollection of that house at all.
That they'd had plumbing, as far as I know. We were forbidden to look over the fence next door, the house immediately adjacent us.
Why?
We didn't know, so Carl and I were, we moved, I think, at 47. I was 5 when we moved, and this was before that, and Carl was. So we climbed the fence and looked over, and the whole yard was piles of human feces. They apparently had no plumbing, and everything was outside. And there were 2 girls using the outdoor toilet when we looked.
Oh,
I never knew the story.
dear.
And we were
So
told,
you had indoor plumbing.
as far as I know, I don't remember ever pooping outside or in an outhouse.
Okay. And how many rooms were there?
The only thing I remember out the house is there was the upstairs, and my small childhood mind, it was like 8 feet wide stairwell, but in reality it might have
Right.
been a standard 30 inches. But I remember standing at the top and looking down. I think the day we moved, it was like, you have to come down, go now. So,
Aww.
and I think that was 47 because I started first grade at the right age, so that would have been 40, I graduated in 60, so I would have started at 13 years before that, 47, yeah.
Did it have telephones and
Yeah.
electricity and everything else?
Everything, plumbing, because Dad was an insurance salesman, he had to do business calls, so we had to share one phone, which was a nightmare.
And then, which was a nightmare. And then that was, you moved from Brooklyn to Virginia Park.
Right,
Okay.
and that was an all-white neighborhood at that time.
Wow.
Almost all Jewish.
Yeah, heavy Jewish too, yeah.
Very Jewish neighborhood.
Wow. And what was that house like?
Beautiful.
2 stories, so they could rent the upstairs and have an income, although at that time Pepper, remember, lived upstairs, but at some point,
I don't think I remember.
I don't remember Pepper and Member living upstairs.
oh yes, they did. They used to
I'm
take
not
me up
saying
there
they
for
didn't, I'm
breakfast.
saying
Yeah.
I don't remember.
He'd invite me out for breakfast, and remember, I'd cook the breakfast, and then Pepper would take the honey, smear it all over the whole plate, and that's why I learned to like honey. Honey on everything for Pepper, on everything.
So, Mom, when you remember Pepper and Memmer, where do you remember them living? And was that before or after?
I remember them living on Prairie Avenue in Detroit.
And
And that
Uncle John,
was-
was that before or after?
After, when they moved out of Virginia Park.
Okay. Why do you think they lived with you in Virginia Park? I would presume to save money, but I don't.
They may have paid for the house for all I know.
I have no clue.
Yeah, could be.
I'm sure why they moved was because of darkening of the neighborhood.
Were they racist, do you think?
Probably as much as anybody at that time,
Yeah.
which you'd say very, very much.
Yeah.
I'll tell